Yeah. Okay, good. We're good to go. My name is Jeremy Preet.
Celestia Roberts.
Greg Jordan.
Okay, so we'll start off by reading these questions. It says, Dr. George will discusses many important issues. Choose one that you personally are interested in understanding and then research the following. So what is one that we want to talk about?
Well, he talked about the national debt first, I think, didn't he? That's the one I researched, was the national debt. I don't
All
know.
right, we can talk about that one. So why do you think the government got involved with that issue?
Well, they caused the issue. So I don't know if it was a good one, if it really fits into the equation of the conversation we're supposed to have. But I think they caused the whole problem. My research found that right now, we're in debt 19 trillion, 30 billion, 24 million, $473,091. That's a lot of money.
Trillion?
That
Gosh.
means that every person in America, if we're if ever a person were to pay, their share of the debt, or whatever, it'd be $152,000 each.
Easy.
It's insane.
That's what they're doing right now. They're running up that killer debt. And someday it's going to come due. I mean, you have to pay the piper eventually. Like Greece went broke and they had to get bailed out by Germany. But there is no Germany that's going to bail us out when we go broke. There's no
Yeah.
country in the world big enough to save us. Greece was a little tiny country that Germany could save. But who's going to save us? Nobody.
Nobody. Was it in this movie or was it in my research? I can't remember when he was talking about how the one guy, was it Henry Ford or Rockefeller, I think it was, could pay off the debt at some point. He could just write a check and pay off the national debt, and now
Yeah.
Bill Gates only pay the interest on it for a couple of months.
Yeah, it was
And
2 months.
2 months, yeah, crazy. Ford or Rockefeller, I think it was, could pay off the debt at some point. He could just write a check and pay off the national debt. Now Bill Gates only pay the interest on it for a couple of months.
Yeah, it was
And
2 months.
2 months, yeah, crazy. Ford or Rockefeller, I think it was, could pay off the debt at some point. He could just write a check and pay off the national debt. Now
We're getting
Bill
so
Gates
much
only
feedback.
pay the interest on it for a couple of
So
months.
is it going to stop?
2 months, yeah, crazy. Ford or Rockefeller, I think it was, could pay off the debt at some point. He could just write a check and pay off the debt.
So I guess it stopped now. So should we all just mute and then we'll talk when we're talking and mute when we're not? Your turn to talk, Celestia. I'm going to mute.
Stop now.
Okay.
So should we all just mute and then we'll talk when we're talking and mute when
Yeah,
we're
we
not?
can raise our hand. We'll raise our hand. I'll talk.
Your turn to talk, Celestia. I'm going to mute.
Stop now.
Okay.
So should we all just mute and then we'll talk when we're talking and mute when
Yeah,
we're not?
we can raise our hand. We'll raise our hand. I'll talk.
Your turn to talk, Celestia. I'm going to stop now.
So the question is, how has it been effective? What have the results been? What have the results been is that the government is just providing so much debt, and it's just going to fall upon us. One thing I thought was interesting. Is, how has it been effective? What have the results been? What have the results been is that the government is just providing so much debt, and it's just going to fall upon us. One thing I thought was interesting. Is, how has it been effective? What have the results been? What have the results been is that the government is just providing so.
It's funny. It's just echoing back over and over and over again. So am I going to echo? I'm not echoing now, right?
You got to do all the talking then.
Well, what about your debt in Canada? Do you have a lot of debt?
You got to do all the talking then. I'm scared to tell you.
Well, what about your debt in Canada?
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say it because we got to get through this someday. So the Canadian national debt is just over $600 billion, which only is $17,000 per person. However, that still sucks. For my province, which is like a state, as you know, still not echoing, it's awesome. We, as of last year, we actually had this massive thing they called the Heritage Fund, and it was based a lot upon principles like what the church does, and it was just basically a savings account, savings for a rainy day, and they had about $1 billion or something, $5 billion or something like that saved up. And in this new government that we elected in the fall, in less than 6 months, that is gone. So it's about very left-wing type spending, social programming, and a lot of I guess excess spending for, what was the quote, instead of spending or borrowing for the future, they're borrowing from the future now. And there's been this real paradigm shift in my region just in the past 6 months that has gone to a complete deficit budget and blown all the savings. And no echo.
So whose turn to talk next? Can you talk, Celestia, or is the echo coming from your side?
I have a headphone from you. I don't know if it's coming from me.
Maybe it's done now. Is it done?
No, it's still echoing. One thing that I thought was interesting, at one point there was, 40, 50 workers per retiree? And now there's only 3 workers per retiree. I think that goes to show that people aren't working when they should be.
It was hard to hear you towards the end of that. I'm not sure what you said. Are you going to listen? How about
I think that goes to show that there aren't enough people working when there should be.
Oh, yeah. So what could the government be doing right now? They could stop spending so much. I put down that the government is only good at killing people and breaking things. Whenever the government tries to take over things, they just cause more problems. So the government needs to... And the other thing was that whole business of that the government incentivizes people to do things. That was hogwashing. You know, that's what he said. People need to be left to their own resources and have competition and all that. They cause more problems than it's worth, I think. I liked what he said, that 90% of what the government does is bad, has bad results, and good governance is usually when things are stopped and not when they're started. That's 2 almost exact quotes from what he said. So what do you think, Jeremy?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Hey, the one thing that I really loved, and I wrote it down, was this quote where he called destigmatizing dependence. And if you look on the discussion board, or at least check it out later, maybe we're not in the same group, but I posted a link, and what's happened because of, and maybe this is the same in the States, but in Canada, the Indian reserves have basically been completely decimated because of this destigmatization of welfare programs and dependence on the government. And so I posted a link to a news article from one of the Indian chiefs that's basically telling his people to grow up and stop feeling like it's okay, and so I posted okay to raise their children on welfare, to raise them without ever having a job. And I think that is kind of poignant probably across the board too, when he's saying that there's something like 48 million or 58 million or something like that people on food stamps. It's just one of those programs that you become dependent on, and that dependence over time starts to yield a laziness and an apathy. Of course, some people need that. They need the programs in order to subsist. However, I've seen it in my own community. People who are completely dependent, their entire income, their livelihood, their lifestyle is all based on handouts, and that's not good and not healthy for a lot of people. Man, I can just hear myself. It's driving me crazy. Are completely dependent. Their entire income, their livelihood, their lifestyle is all based on. Anyhow, I actually got to participate in one of those programs. It was a government program when I was first married, and our first baby came along. We didn't actually apply for it, which is interesting in thinking back. A health nurse came over and weighed our baby and measured her and gave us a couple of binders about how new parents can care for their children, and then she gave us a whole booklet full of coupons for free milk, free juice, all this stuff like this for new moms to make sure that they were getting nutrition and all that kind of stuff. And it was not just hundreds of dollars; it was thousands of dollars worth of free food. I guess the equivalent of what a food stamp might be, but in Canada, and it's a social program. We didn't require it. I was well employed, but they were just willing to just give away good money to somebody in the name of running a program. I guess the equivalent of what a food stamp might be, but in Canada, it's a social program. We didn't require it. I was well employed. You got to listen to me twice. Give away good
Well, let's go to where are we at? We pretty much talked about all the questions except for the last one, I think. The last one says, in what areas do you personally feel the government should be involved and should not be involved in addressing your chosen threat to children and families? And I guess that's the threat we've chosen for the semester or whatever, that we write about and all that stuff, that we research and all that. Is that right? And should not be involved in addressing your chosen threat to children.
I don't know.
I guess that's the threat we've chosen for the... Well, my chosen threat was the media. That's what I've researched and wrote on, and I don't think there's anything that the government can do about the threat of the media. I think the people need to say, we don't want this stuff that's threatening our children, that's, anti-family, that's, immoral, and so on and so forth, and they need to stop paying for it and consuming it, and then it'll go away. But as long as they're consuming it, it's going to always be there, and it's growing and everything else. And so on and so forth, and they need to stop paying for it and consuming it, and then it'll go away. Consuming it, it's going to always be there, and it's growing and everything else.
I have a couple comments about what Jeremy said. I think those government programs are for people to get back on their feet and then go off the programs. That should be the design and the purpose for them, but instead of people doing that, they are taking advantage of and taking more government programs. Are for people to get back on their feet and then go off the program. That should be the design and the purpose for them, but instead of people doing it, they are taking advantage and taking more government programs.
Just talk over yourself.
Can you hear me when I do that? Because I can't hear you guys very well. I can't understand.
I actually agree with your echo. I agree with your echo way more than your original thought.
Okay.
It seems a little more relevant.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me when I do that? And then in my other group discussion board, someone commented, you know, what's the proper role of government in general? And she said that the government should be like parents supporting their children, nearby to render assistance when necessary, but government should and parents should not do for the children or the citizens what they can do for themselves. You know, citizens and children will make mistakes, and so parents and government should be able to step in when needed and not just take over like they have been. Citizens and children will make mistakes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one of the reasons why, well, the reason I brought that up about the program being introduced to my wife and I when we didn't actually seek after it is just because I feel like some of these programs are almost too easy to access. We want them to be easy to access for people who require it, but in a lot of ways there's not a competent follow-up method. There's not a training model. It's just here's the handout, here's the money, here's the food stamps, and let people run with that. And people are selfish. I mean, it's the natural man. If we're getting something for free, why would I want to work to pay for that? And so that's where I feel like the government should be more involved, is in a follow-up, in a training model, and in a way to help people, like what Celestia said, to get off the program as quick as possible. To get them moving on to a place where they can be contributing back to society and in some ways even paying back the kindness, the debt, the monies that have been forwarded to them. Off the program as quick as possible. To get them moving on to a place where they can be contributing back.
Well, just to go on what you guys are talking about, I work for the Department of Social Services here in California, in Riverside County, and I actually have been on the giving end, so to speak, for food stamps, cash aid, Medi-Cal, for, you know, government benefits, in other words. And it's not shrinking, it's growing like mad. And it's never gonna stop. And just the whole organization of it all, the way it is, it's just like a corporation wanting to grow. The government welfare corporation wants to grow, and it is growing like mad, and they push for growth just like any corporation. They want, I don't know how or why or what, they want growth, and it's growing like mad. But for 20, how long has it been now? 20 years I've been processing welfare fraud overpayments, so I take it back when they're stealing it, but it's growing like mad. But for 20.
And is there an assessment program affiliated with that? Is there a way that they're tracking how it's being used or the effectiveness of it to families?
Growing like mad. I would say no.
No.
They don't worry about the effectiveness.
Assessment program affiliated with that? Is there a way that they're... Well, I think because they can say, here's the results. We have nobody starving. You know, kids are getting their meals and their milk and all that stuff, so they can say it's effective that way. But to the people who really need it, I'm wondering what the delivery model really looks like. You know, in contrast to what it is right now. Their meals and their milk and all that stuff, so they can say it.
I'm not sure how to answer that question. They just make up laws and make it easier and easier to start to get aid, and if you meet those qualifications, you get it. Or if you don't meet the qualifications, you lie and you still get it. You lie and you say that you don't have enough money. That's where I come in. I try to find, the people that are lying about their income and what have you, and then make them pay the money back. But it's just all based on laws from politicians saying if a person has, depending on their income and whatever, then they are entitled to X amount of dollars, X amount of food stamps, and what have you. If a person has, depending on their income, and that made sense and answered your question at all. I don't.
Yeah.
X amount of dollars, X amount of
I would love to see a government program that isn't wasteful, that isn't run full of holes and just full of bureaucracy.
They, in 1998, was it? They had welfare reform in the United States, which was an effort to try to reform the welfare system and try to get people to work and so on and so forth. It has done absolutely nothing. As part of doing that, they added a program of child care. There is so much fraud in child care, it's crazy. And because of the child care program that they started, it has jacked up rates for the people that pay for their own child care. And they pay millions and millions of dollars now for another program. It didn't do anything for the people that pay for their own child care. And they pay millions and millions of dollars now for another program. It didn't do anything.
Wow. All right, well, let's sum this sucker up. Was I supposed to do it, or did we fight over it and you lost?
Greg.
All right. And sorry, Sister Meeker, for the audio. You don't have to listen to this. Just fast forward the whole thing. Wow. All right,
So you say I'm doing the summary? Well, my summary is that we discussed the national debt that is occurring and growing in the United States and also in Canada, it appears, and that we need to concentrate more on helping people to be independent instead of dependent on the government. And that's my summary.
Well, that's been fun, guys. Anything else you want to add, Celestia, or you want to just say it one time?